I'm going to call this meeting, Capital Improvement Committee, to order. If you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, this is going to be an informal committee meeting, so we're going to go in and out of the agenda so we can get some people in and out of here. So right now, if people could just look over the minutes, we'll accept the minutes if.
I'll make the motion as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Now, what I'd like to do is go right to fire and police, so we can get them up here, do their presentation, and I know there's a lot going on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I could be pretty brief.
Okay, sir.
I think that's all that's going to be the main thing. I've gone over most of the items that you have on the report here with the administrator. So I think the only thing that basically we're looking at at this point, I think, is the vehicle. We're looking at getting a vehicle. So we're looking at a couple of different options as they come through. I believe one of the things we're looking at is a hybrid, like an SUV hybrid. So the administrator is telling me that there's some money available possibly from the state for a green vehicle. We're looking at some options of either buying or leasing, so we're currently in that process of determining what's the best process to go. But it's going to be somewhere in the $50,000 to $55,000 range. That's what it's going to be formally once that all goes through. But I assume I'll either put a warrant article together with the administrator or something. We'll have that on for discussion at your when you do the review the budget warrant articles. And I'm not sure if there's anything else on that you wanted me to address, or if there's other issues to go over.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir.
So the chief and I are going to sit and take a look at lease versus purchase. At some point, we'll have to see whether that does not become cost effective anymore, as opposed to debt excluding or making a straight cash purchase. And I think that number for the cruiser, depending on if it's an SUV or if it's a administrative vehicle, that price can fluctuate between, for anywhere from 26 to 50. There's a $5,500 rebate that we can receive if it's a hybrid vehicle, and I think it's up to $7,500 if it's all electric. I don't think we're ready for all electric yet, but I think that we could certainly take a look at the idea of $5,500 rebate through green communities, and an administrative vehicle would probably be more in the $19,000 range. And at that point, I would certainly recommend that it become a warrant article, pre-cash purchase.
Okay. And that's already on the Excel sheet for the capital improvement.
Yeah, and I think, Chief, we're going to take the server off and
Yes.
move that.
Yes.
We had discussed that.
Yes. Yeah, whatever we had discussed before, I think if you have notes on those, that should be fine.
Any questions?
None.
No issues with a hybrid vehicle for police service?
No, not that I'm hearing now, and even some of them, they're designed, like we were looking at the idle, what's the name of it? There's a system basically that you can say so.
Electric idler.
Yeah, you can run still like lights and things like if you're at an accident scene or whatever, you can run lights and things without having to actually run the car. So it does, they run off the battery, and then once the battery starts dropping down to a certain level, the car starts up, charges the battery again, so it saves on fuel. And it's my understanding that even some of the new hybrids have that built-in technology that's available to it.
Right, so we're going to, Mr. Chairman, we're getting one of those devices that actually makes the cruiser shut off, so it doesn't idle endlessly. If it were, say, it's at it stopped at a work site on a road construction project or something like that, what it'll do is it just kind of manages the power. It keeps the lights and everything going for, you know, all the warning devices still work. And when the battery starts getting low, it monitors that, starts it back up. And it's a more energy efficient way to run a fleet. So we're going to try one of those. I'm getting it under a grant for nothing. And we'll install it into one of our newer cruisers, and we'll see how that first one works out. We'll kind of do like kind of a beta test for it. And then hopefully they'll pretty much, you know, available at a very low, insignificant cost. We'll just, you know, we'll get them for the rest of the fleet if the first one works out all right.
Yep.
And then we'll try to start making a move towards hybrid vehicles
Okay.
where we can.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, thank you very
Thank
much. I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Chief.
taking that over.
Thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir. Hi, Chief.
Hi, how we doing?
Outstanding.
So, based on our CIP plan, we're looking at replacing ambulance 1 this year. It's ambulances are supposed to be replaced every 5 years. This ambulance is approaching 11 years of age. As you know, call volume, 70% of our call volume is EMS. We do about 2,500 ambulance calls a year. It does bring in revenue to the town, secondary to providing an emergency service. Right now, we have that ambulance backlined. It's the backup ambulance. It is a van style. I've had a lot of issues with it. Last year, I had issues getting it certified by the state. I also had issues getting it inspected. It had a rejection sticker on it for a while. So it's imperative that we replace that truck at this time. The price is $260. I talked to the sales rep today. It's going to hold at $260 through the fall.
Mr. Chairman, one thing with the EMS section of the fire department, we've noticed over the past year between the increase in fees and call volume, we've almost doubled our annual receipts. So I think, you know, not only from a public safety perspective, but from the amount of revenue that second ambulance generates, this is absolutely a must.
Okay.
What were the final numbers, Chief? Do you remember? For your ambulance receipts versus a year ago? Was it almost double?
It wasn't almost double, but it was probably 33%. I think it was 33 or 38% higher. It was
Today, right?
Yeah. Initially, it was last year we took in about 500,000. This year we're going to take in over 700,000. Hopefully that's projected, but so far we're moving in that direction. We were up 108,000 when I gave my report in January for the first 6 months.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic. Any questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, do we have 2 ambulances in our fleet?
Yes,
Okay. And you're looking to replace just one of those 2?
correct.
Okay.
The other one's only a few years old, but it is a frontline truck, but we're obviously running it more because I'm trying to baby the other one along because I've had a lot of mechanical issues with it. It is a van style. The one in the front's a truck style. I would get another truck style just based on the New England landscape and the weather pattern. I just think vans don't hold up. Plus, I'm starting to have other physical and motor issues with the truck, the backline truck. So it's been out of service quite a few times this year. And we do have a lot of instances where we have back-to-back or multiple calls at the same time, and I have given away some calls, not a lot, but
Mr. Chairman, I think it's also important to note that we're moving towards fiscal year '21, having overnight paramedic and fire service for the first time, and switching to a 24-hour model for staffing the fire department. And my recommendation for this is going to be, and of course it's up to it might be different than your recommendation, but I'd like to see this be presented as a borrowing article at the Springtown meeting and voted to debt exclude on the November presidential ballot, I think it will probably stand the best chance of passing, because you usually have a bigger voter turnout for that.
Okay. Any comments on that? Yes, sir.
That's for the ambulance.
My question was going to be, is there going to be an increased usage for your 24-hour shifts, or it shouldn't be anything? It's just a staffing change?
Well, that's just a staffing change. One doesn't really have anything to do with the other, because the ambulance was already covered 24/7, but the call volume on the EMS side has consistently increased every year. And I can show, I don't have the reports with me tonight, but it'll show that in the annual town report, as well as my monthly reports, and I'm gonna start doing quarterly reports, but we've steadily increased in call volume every year since I've been chief here, and I've been here 9 years.
So is there going to be a call for a third ambulance shortly? I can't imagine
Well,
that
I
you
would,
have such an increase in call volume, but everything is spaced out in 2.5 or 3 hour increments,
well,
where the same group is going and going.
I would love to have a third ambulance, but unfortunately, I have to prioritize things, and we also have a couple fire trucks that need to be replaced 2 or 3 years down the road, because they're approaching 30 years old. One of those trucks has a pump in it that's over 50 years old, because they put a used pump in it. So, how many vehicles do you know that are kept for 50 years?
They're all garaged in Dudley.
Right,
Absolutely.
and we do a phenomenal job, and I'm not just saying that because I'm making a presentation, but we're always on top of the maintenance. They get maintained every year. They get their oil changes and everything, and their filter changes every year faithfully. Whenever there's a problem, it gets fixed immediately, and they're cleaned all the time, and they're very well taken care of, but it just gets to a point where it's seen its useful life.
It wasn't a question of management or maintenance. And they
Well, I
don't-
just
they
want
don't- they
people
don't-
out
they
there.
don't- They don't last 50 years because we've kept them out of the rain. The question was, do you have a projection when your call volume is going to hit such a large number that you would need to have a second pair of paramedics? You would be giving away more than what it would cost to have that additional ambulance?
Yes, that's absolutely the plan, which I've pretty much done that since I've come here. I mean, when I first came here, we started with no coverage, went to 6 to midnight, then we went to overnight, now we're going to overnight fire coverage, so the projection 2 to 3 years out to be maybe adding a little bit more staffing, but I don't want to jam it down your throat all at once, because that's just not going to work. But yes, the call volume keeps increasing, so yes, that is in the plan
So
down the
right now,
road.
Chief, through the chair, the model is overnight. If there's a fire call or the first truck is out, you revert to the current model, which is,
No,
Either
well,
per-
we do a callback.
You'd be-
If
okay, you
we
do
do
a
a call,
callback
we
if
do,
somebody
if,
come in.
if the truck goes, well, let me restate that. If the truck stays local, if it transports to Harrington or Hubbard, which is in Webster, which I'm sure you all know, or most of you, we don't do a callback. If it goes to the city, which is UMass or St. Vincent's, we do a callback for 2 paramedics for station coverage. So the second truck is then staffed, because the transport time is a lot longer, so it takes them a little while to get back in service. So we try not to have any gaps in coverage. So if there's a secondary emergency, then you will be well taken care of by Dudley people.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chief.
So next, what I'd ask is, Vinnie, if you'd come up. How you doing, Vinnie?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
We got a pickup.
It's the foreman's pickup, the building and grounds pickup.
Yeah, well, buildings,
Guardrail and access road, but I can speak to those. And you also had a loader on there. Oh, I missed the highlight.
do you want to do both of them pickups on the highway, or you want to change one of them to buildings and grounds?
Well, building and grounds has been moved over to your budget.
Okay.
We can,
Okay.
so you can speak on it.
Yep.
Or I can. It's up to you.
Well, I'll do the pickups first. Well, actually, I'll do the loader first. The loader, I think, is gonna go out to Chapter 90, and let the state fund that. And that's it. I'm sorry, I can't see it too good. That's 190, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah. Next year, the state oh, that's much better. The state's gonna give us about I take that back, about 440 as of right now, and they've actually increased, the last 2 years, they've added an additional 40 to 45,000. So that account for next fiscal year is gonna have plenty of money to buy a piece of equipment, and the loader, is gonna be the piece. I changed it around. This year was supposed to be 2 chassis and a catch basin cleaner, and the loader was supposed to be 2 years out. But we're just getting finalized with our new street sweeper, and we're just finishing up converting the old street sweeper into a catch basin cleaner. And I explained this last time. I'm not sure how it's gonna perform yet, so I didn't want to try to fund a catch basin cleaner this year and find out that one works fine. So I just moved them around a little bit, but the loader is up, Chapter 90 on that. The pickup trucks, with the foreman's truck, needs to be replaced. It's completely rotted out. That would be the F-350. Do you have the specs on them? The bid sheets?
If not, I can.
I have them.
No, I don't see it.
These are off the state bid list.
Okay.
That's the 250. I doubled up on the F-250, and I don't have any F-350.
But they're both off this, Mr. Chairman, they're both off the state bid list?
Yeah.
MHQ?
MHQ, yep.
Okay.
I got a whole bunch of F-250 ones, but I don't have the 350.
Okay.
So they're there anyways.
We can forward them along if you don't have them.
Right. Not a problem.
These are that's gonna be the next one. Anyway, the F-350 is for the highway department. It's a heavy-duty truck with a snowplow. I'd like to go with a utility body on it. Utility bodies are more feasible for us than just a pickup body.
Okay.
And I think the total on that, which I don't have. I do have one quote. The bare bones is $31,527. An additional $7,500 for the utility body. $950 for the light bar. $6,400 for the Fisher plow. $600 for the Rhino spray-on bed liner. And the total on that, the total options is $15,985. So the grand total on that is $47,512. That's for an F-350 utility body. And a few extras added to it. Two-way radios, $500. The door decals are $50. And the XL with chrome bumpers and differential lock is an additional $800. And that's the amount for the Highway Department F-350.
350, okay.
So the final amount was 47,512?
Plus the,
Plus the other 1350.
correct.
$48,862.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll update your plan to reflect that for the foreman's truck.
That truck is completely worn out. The chassis are rotted right out, the body's falling off of it. It's got 1,000,000 miles on it. There's nothing to trade in on that. There's no value to keep it.
Okay,
And then the next pickup truck would be for buildings and grounds. That's gonna be basically an F-250, and that's the one you have in front of you. Base price is $29,508. I would go with the spray-on bed liner for that. No snowplow, no steel snowplow foil, but I would put the bar light on that for $945. So that would be $29,508 plus the $595 plus the $945, and then I wanted to talk to Jonathan about if he wanted to put a two-way radio in that truck or not. And if so, that would be an additional $500. Door decals would be an additional $50.
So I think the suggestion would be we could use I could get a two-way radio from probably the fire department, and if we just have
A
it
hand-me-down will work
yeah.
in there, yep, yep,
just have it set up
yep.
for it, maybe, with the antenna, we can just install it in-house.
Because the truck they're using now has no communications in it at all.
Okay. So Rich, do you have the grand total there?
For the 250,
Yeah.
the 37,998 less the plow and the steel snow foil.
Correct. Does anybody want copies of the F-350? I just have the one sheet.
Fine. That's 31,048.
31048.
okay.
So we're not plowing in this truck? The first calculation I did is when I saw 48,862 with the utility body, I just subtracted 7,500 and came up with 41,362, looking at a 37,998, saying,
Mr. Chairman?
Sir,
So, we did go back and forth about putting a plow on that truck, and Vinnie brought up the fact that we have a small dump truck that if we ever needed to plow or put building and grounds into a position where they were plowing, that would be the one to use instead of plowing really beats the heck out of a truck. So the thought was that if we use them, like we've used them this past year, we put them into that truck and let them continue to use that going forward. And if we get to the point after a few years we need to put a plow on it, we can do it then. But for the sake of maintaining the truck, I mean, the one we currently have is 2008. So for the sake of trying to get some longevity out of it, for the short trips that it makes, putting a plow on it was probably a bad idea.
Yeah, I think both of these trucks are 2008s. One got a plow on it, and it's whooped, and the other one doesn't have a plow on it, and that can be recycled into the animal control vehicle. It's still got life left to it, so the plow does kill them.
okay, anybody else? Any comments, questions, concerns? About either one? Okay.
Number 77, guardrail replacement, that's to continue on with the guardrails that are in town that are in dire need of replacement. We're doing one side of Charlton Road at the pond right now. This money would be for the other side of the road. It's about 4 times the amount of money for us to do it versus, a company to come in and do it versus us to do it. So, we got a post hole digger for our Bobcat. We're not breaking any speed records, but it's coming out perfect, so.
Great. Sir.
Chapter 90 doesn't cover guardrails?
It does. I don't know how fine you want to, how much you want to stretch that money. I've been trying to use Chapter 90 money for asphalt, basically, road surface. You can use Chapter 90 for a lot of things.
And to tie that in with the loader, the presumption is there's going to be the lion's share of road work done with that loader, that it's going to qualify for the Chapter 90 funds. So instead of using X amount of dollars to pay labor, it's going to be for machinery that's going to be putting down the road beds, carting away the grindings, all of that.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
we have been trying to switch the model and finally got to the point where Chapter 90 wasn't used almost exclusively to support the highway department. We now properly fund snow and ice. I'm going to recommend a little bit of a drawback on one account and try to use up some of the Chapter 90 going through some of the projects. It's also going to be a transitional year for us as well, but I think it's a good model, and I think the superintendent agrees that we use Chapter 90 to the extent possible for materials and equipment and not for payroll and trying to keep the department operating.
Bless you.
Okay,
Excellent.
good. Okay, sir.
And the access road, right now, the highway department is situated on Indian Road, everybody knows that, but there's only one way in, one way out, and, the road in, has got some big electrical power heading down to power the highway department and the recycling center. And, if one of them big trees on that road or off that road fall and take them wires down into the road, we're trapped. We can't get out of there.
Or into there, for that matter.
Huh?
And we can't, Mr. Chairman, get into that
Yeah,
area
it's
to
a
access fuel, equipment, everything we'd need during like a tornado or a hurricane. If we lose the access to Indian Road, we're landlocked.
So you're looking to put another road in there?
We're looking to put another road in there that will serve multiple purposes. The source of funding we're hoping will be through a municipal vulnerability grant. And we've gone through all the motions to try to get that. We had an engineer in last week, and we met with him to look at some different possibilities to not only serve the highway and the fuel source on Indian Road, but to also bring a roadway back behind Gentex and Joshua Place to provide second egress to our elderly community, which I think is very important, so that there's only one way in to Joshua Place, and also a business that has a lot of employees there during the day, one way in, and not a second way out. So the proposal would be to go from Indian Road, bring the road up behind Gentex, up behind Joshua Place. And where was it coming out? Was it coming out at Joshua Place?
Yes, Washington Street.
Washington Street. So it looked like an upside-down 3 if you're looking at the map. It served 3 different facilities. We'd use grant funding to secure it.
Okay.
And we think it's an important project because, again, our fuel source is down there, all of our equipment to respond and to a disaster is down there, and it wouldn't take much to cause a real problem if we couldn't access our equipment and get out.
All right. Yes, sir.
The clarification, these are emergency access roads, so heaven forbid something happens, or this is going to be
This will be a regular. from
regular
what-
travelable?
It's gonna be a regular roadway, an accepted
Regular-
roadway. That's the way it's, in terms of the engineering cost, we're trying to get it shovel-ready. We've asked for some state funding to pay for the engineering cost to cover it, and then with that shovel-ready project, we'll apply for the grant funding.
And the installation of the road will be done internally?
In-house,
Right.
yeah, our own
Okay.
guys will do it. And while we're on the subject, we're trying to do the same thing for Mason Road School, that's one way in. And that could turn into, no matter what the emergency situation, or even to alleviate some traffic, we need to get a second way out of there. And if you consider the way Shepherd Hill is set up, in the middle school, one way in. That's it. So you've landlocked two schools with two student populations, and we're trying to get a second way out of there. That's also our emergency shelter. If we needed to evacuate people to an emergency shelter, there's only one way in there. And secondly, our point of distribution for emergency management. So if water or emergency supplies had to be brought in, you'd have to make, you wouldn't want that one roadway to be blocked. That could be a big problem for us. So we're trying to pursue the same source of funding for those as well. We're working with the schools on that.
That'd be a separate.
That would be a
What we're
school
talking about
initiative,
now.
but we're helping them out in terms of helping with the grant funding, and maybe down the road we'll help out with some work as well, but that would be more of a school grant request, not a municipal request, a grant request.
Okay.
When are you applying for the grant?
As soon as we get the engineering completed.
What about the land? Back by the highway department, all that land, who owns the land?
Well, we own a lot of
You own all?
it. We own a lot of it, and we'd be looking to,
Indian Road exists.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Indian Road exists. If you had a good pair of boots and it wasn't too wet, I bet you could start at the recycling center and make your way all the way down to Rocky Road onto New Boston.
right, we own all that land right down to Rocky Road. However, one of the problems that we ran into is that the capped landfill is right in the way for us to put a roadway through there.
Yeah.
So the other option is we own some land that goes up behind Joshua Place, and
Yeah, between
We'd
the town
be-
of Dudley, Dudley Housing Authority and Gentex. Those
Yeah.
are pretty much the three property owners in that
Yeah.
area.
So the land wouldn't be an issue.
no, we wouldn't purchase any land. It would only be for construction.
Okay. Anybody else, any questions?
Excellent.
Did you want a copy of the quotes on the loader, even though they're not gonna be, town meeting?
Please.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Just make sure the chair has one.
Through the chair, Vinnie, did you have a preference on the guardrail replacement in terms of Chapter 90 versus free cash?
I
I want to
would-
make sure we're going to get it on the record, whatever your preference is.
Yeah, like I said, I don't really wanna use Chapter 90 funds for the guardrail. I would, like to keep the Chapter 90 funds strictly for asphalt. So, to answer your question,
The
Free cash.
remaining balance from the loader for asphalt?
I'm sorry?
So the remaining balance after you purchase the loader would be for asphalt work? Because you're,
Correct,
so the loader's coming off of Chapter 90, and the rest
Correct.
would go
Next-
towards the asphalt materials?
correct.
Okay.
And that's fiscal year 21, I believe.
Yep.
Beautiful. Any other questions, comments?
The state did already commit to a, like I said, 450 ballpark thousand
Oh, beautiful.
fiscal year 21, so.
Fantastic. Okay. Great job.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
George?
All right.
Evening. Quite a bit of an agenda here, a lot on our plate. I'm gonna just go through a couple of things for our department's needs right off the bat, and I'll get into the big projects that we're talking about. On the sewer side, there is nothing pending right now as of any type of article, except we will be coming out of retained earnings for a generator for Lyons Road. And the only reason it's coming up now is I have a gracious donation from one of the builders of the subdivision on Lyons Road for $7,500 towards that generator. And the reason I had asked if he'd contribute to that is because of the fact that now they're doubling the house loads in that area. So if there's a power failure, we could get into more issues as far as filling up the wet well and overflowing. So he was nice enough to donate that amount of money towards it, so we're working on that. That's approximately $20,000 for that generator, for that size. I'm just getting quotes in now. And we'll be looking at that as it progresses, so that's a good thing there.
Okay.
Otherwise, they're all set. The radio reads and the up there have already been purchased. We got a couple pallets in of it at a $30,000 reduction price for buying it in bulk. And we've actively been putting in 12 a day out in the town because we're saving copious amounts of money, and we're making a lot of new revenue with the defective meters, stop meters, broken meters, slowed up meters, et cetera. I decided to go ahead, well, the wintertime months and get it all done so we can start getting the new radio read systems in more efficiently, and they can detect now if people, if there's any meter tampering, any meter that are defective, loss of water, what might be the causes that leads us into many avenues with the new software. So that's a good thing there.
And is that a live read as it happens?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we've got about probably 400 or so more to go, but we've had a about 2,300 customers that we're doing. So as you know, it's tough to get. We have to replace some of the old ones that we put in back 10 years ago because the battery lives go 10 years. Now they're up about 20 years.
Okay.
So we're redoing that there. So that's all being taken care of. The only major article for the water department is going to be a new Ford F-350 heavy-duty pickup truck, Super Duty pickup truck. And it's going to replace the 17-year-old F-150. Right now, the dog officer is using it because I didn't feel wrecking it anymore was going to do any good for it since we can't really use it. So at least she can do her thing with the dogs and that with it.
Good.
So she's been using it for a while now, about a year now. I need to replace that truck now. We've been using our big box truck for all the running around, and that's not good. It's a heavy-duty work truck. I did get a price from MHQ, but I also got one that just came in from Place Motor that beat MHQ. The total for the MHQ price was $43,349, which is all heavy-duty truck, rhino bed, Fisher 8-foot plow, not a wing plow, but a standard plow with that. Some marker lights, your average electronic shift with the new 7.3-liter gas pushrod engine, which is new for Ford. I wanted to try that out because they say it's better fuel economy than the old one, and it's the old one they've been having troubles with.
Mr. Chairman, what was the, I'm sorry, George, what was the total?
43, on MHQ was 43,349. 43,349. Now, this is going to come out, we have 45,000 coming out of retained earnings for this truck, and the reason is being, I have a lot of borrowing going on right now for the other big projects, which I'll get into. But the truck is a necessity right now. My fleet's running down. On the same token, I just, I'll have to forward it later on, but I've got a quote back from Place Motor, which beats that price and brings the truck price with a couple options, still need to go on there, which will bring about $41,000, $40,000 to $41,000. So that beat them right there. So it looks like even without a rhino lining, which is about a $500 option, and another couple little things, it's gonna beat that price there, and that's the one I'm gonna go with the low bidder. So
Okay.
they do fleet bid too.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so, and I'd rather have them close by, I'll get better service and all that. So that's the only main article for the water department at this time, as far as in-house that we're looking for.
Okay.
Any questions on the truck part of it? Pretty straightforward.
Source of funding was retained earnings.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Just bear with me with the other projects. This is a lot to swallow, and I'll try to get through it so everybody can understand it. To my right here is Jeff Faulkner, Senior Project Manager for the Ty and Bond Water Department, and Marina Ferrandis, she's Senior Project Manager for the sewer side of the project for the Ty and Bond. I'm gonna start off on the water side first. This is the big project right here, okay? Thanks to their help, the Water Department was able to receive a draft for a SRF loan from the state, okay? We've been listed on it. And they're gonna get into more of this right now, and I'm just gonna hit the top of it right now, so you have a general idea. The borrowing that we're looking for, and I'll go into the articles in a minute, is about $5.225 million, okay, for the projects. Now, the projects have already sort of begun a little bit, because last year, I appropriated $300,000 from our retained earnings to begin the Station 3 well replacement project, okay? That is like 3/4 complete. The rest of it is going to be picked up by this loan, and the other projects coming in are going to finish off this. But right now, that was an emergency, and I needed to get it moving. So that's already been in the works right now. The new projects coming up now are going to be these will be for an article for SRF borrowing for the finishing of Station number 3, the rehabilitation, new well put in on Station number 1 on West Main Street. I think I mentioned some of this.
Excuse me,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, do you have the amounts on those, George?
1.3, was it 1.3 for Station?
So Station 3, I believe, is already funded.
I think Station 1. Main station.
Station 1, so it's one number packaged together, so the numbers might change in between.
Okay.
Okay.
But 5.225 for the package of 3 projects.
It was actually, on the individual, I think it was 1.5, somewhere in that range for Station 1.
I can switch the way it's formatted, so.
They're subject to some, that's.
So we're eliminating, because I want this to be right just on the plan, so we're eliminating Station number 3, that's been completed?
It's 3/4 of the way completed. It's for the
Why
final
don't we
time.
go through?
But let me
Mr.
just go
Chairman?
through
Yes.
what it is, and then they'll take it from there for the whole numbers and everything. 'Cause
For the
they'll
breakdown.
get everybody all screwed up.
To satisfy, okay.
Yeah, okay, so the second project of this, and this is something, and DEP has declared this an emergency situation, so this isn't anything that I could say, no, I don't want to do it. It needs to be done, and the reason this needs to be done is right now, I can barely sustain myself on hot summer, on hot days, schools are in session, any type of major main break or usage in a fire, or new businesses, or any way you want to call it, I'm at my peaks. I only have 2 pumping stations in operation right now, and the one that I just mentioned is barely in operation because it's been Band-Aided twice already for a collapsed well. So it's very vitally important that I get these articles going and these projects moving, okay, because they are time-consuming with the DEP permitting, developing, engineering, what have you. But right now, that's 3/4 done. The next phase is they're even moving into now is surveying and development and getting engineering ready for Station 1 for the new well project, rehabilitation of the station. Now, I don't want to mention this right now, but further down the line, I may be getting into a new treatment process that will have to be incorporated in these stations, which I'm not getting into right now, but it's coming down the pike. All the towns are going to have to do it if they have to. But for now, this is just to get water to us so we can have back to our normal running supply of water. We used to have 3 pumping stations. We've been using 2 now since 2001, and I can't have that anymore. So we're going to be doing a complete rehab Station 1. They're going to new wells inside corrosion control systems, piping, tanks, what have you, the whole ball of wax. The next part of it is going to be Mason Road water main replacement from West Main Street to June Street with a new 8-inch ductile water main. They'll be putting it on the opposite side of the street, running it up so that they don't disrupt any water service to the customers. It'll stop at June Street. We already did one back many years ago where we had already put an 8-inch in because of the amount of main breaks that occurred. I forgot, it was 10 years ago. And it went to Dudley Oxford Road. So we'll be picking it up from Dudley Oxford Road again and taking all of Mason Road Extension and tying this into GNS Drive to make a nice loop in so that water can turn on. Right now, it's isolated. I'm only feeding one way because of the amount of main breaks I keep getting on Mason Road Extension. It's just the main there is just very brittle. And
That's an old one, right?
very old,
Yeah.
old transite main, yeah.
Okay.
So that is that. That's, I'll let Jeff get into more of that cost-wise and that. And the next one after that is going to be, and this is mandated by the state anyway, is going to be maintenance, some modifications, cleaning, draining of our 2 reservoir tanks, one on Bates Road and one on Dresser Hill Road. They've allowed me to push those off a bit right now. They were supposed to be done, but due to the fact of the situation with the pump stations, which I can't sustain, if I drain them and try to fill them, I'll be in a big mess. They're allowing me to push off so these projects can be addressed right now. So right now, and if I missed anything, Jeff will pick it up. I'm going to let Jeff just make his presentation on the water side. This has nothing to do with the sewer yet. Sewer is going to be an article for I&I, the phase of, we're going to be doing more of the actual construction, repairs, modifications of the study that was done to get, we know what our system's about, what's happening with it as far as the infiltration of water. That part of it is going to address that. And Maureen will get into that part of it for money and what we're doing there. So I'll give it to Jeff right now.
Thanks, George. Jeff Faulkner from Ty and Bond. Hi. So as George mentioned, I'm the project manager for Ty and Bond on the water side. Last August, we worked with George to submit an application to the State Revolving Fund. It's an annual state program through Mass DEP to help fund water and sewer projects. And we submitted an application for what were the top 3 priorities in town on the water side. And it was submitted as a single package as $5.225 million of construction dollars. And it was approved on the list for funding. And it's going to be finalized this coming, I think, in April. But it will stay on the list, the project for you. They pay for construction dollars only, so we are currently ongoing under a fall appropriation for the design work of those 3 projects. So what we anticipate is that the projects would move forward under the SRF program. With that, there are some benefits. It is a low-interest loan. It's a 2% loan to the town over a 20-year payback period. In the intermediate period during construction, they give the town a 0% interim loan, so there's no other bank financing involved, and that'll pay the contractor's bills on a month-to-month basis until the project is complete, and then it goes to permanent financing with that 2% interest rate. An additional benefit is that Dudley qualifies for what they call principal forgiveness. Essentially, it's a grant portion or money off the top of the loan, and on the water side, it's 13.2% roughly, and that could even go up if other projects that are on the list don't move forward. So they kind of spread it out amongst the towns that are eligible. So that would roughly be a $700,000 value to the town. So definite benefit. We're now currently proceeding with the design work, and there's a few slides presented for your viewing. Contract 1 is water pumping station number 1 modifications. This is the main pumping station. It is a emergency source now, so it's an old well field that has 60 or 70 small wells, shallow wells in the back. But that'll be replaced with 3 wells, and then we'll connect those 3 new wells into the building and demo the tank that you see there inside the building. That's an old vacuum assist pumping system. No longer, people don't use that anymore. There'll be more modern equipment for pumping and piping, and also chemical feeding for adjusting for pH in the water as well. So the project will include the well pumps and the site piping, some flow meters, and some minor building modifications to make sure that the work can proceed. Go to the next slide. Contract 2 we're calling the Mason Road water main project. So here in yellow you see the proposed work area from the south Main Street going up first June Street, and then jumping over that work that the town did a few years back, and then picking up again at Dudley Oxford Road and going up to G&S Drive and a couple of 100 feet on GNS drive to loop to existing water main. So that'll replace 1940s vintage pipe, 6-inch, with a 8-inch ductile iron pipe, total length of roughly 8,600 feet. And contract 3 is the rehabilitation of the 2 water storage tanks in town. I think DEP has been asking the town to consider these projects for a bit here. And we would put out a contract that would call for a contractor to rehabilitate both tanks in separate times of the year so that you wouldn't be out supply of water for any length of time. The picture on the top of the slide is the Bates Road water storage tank. It's basically a concrete tank that is been earth surrounding it at this point in time. And then the bottom picture on the right is like an aerial image of what that tank looks like from above. So you can see the roof of it, but it's buried along the sides.
That tank was actually rehabilitated many years ago. We had some E. coli problems due to burrowing in the top. So I was able to get a grant, a FEMA grant, thanks to Paul Konechny. We worked on it, and they were able to get $100,000 to redo that top part of it there. So that was a big benefit to us. That helped secure the tank.
And the work will include cleaning as well as in the interior coating, the interior walls, make sure they don't spall and deteriorate, as well as adding a mechanical mixer to the tank. That's a new technology that is desired at this point in time. It helps move the water around in the tank so there's less likely bacteria hits. And then the second tank, to go back one slide, is the standpipe in town, probably more visible to you than the other tank on Dresser Hill Road. It's a 750,000 gallon concrete standpipe, and that will get similar work, interior cleaning and coating, and mixer system added. That'll also get site fencing around it for vandalism purposes. So those are the projects that are proposed, mainly due to them being high priorities for the water department. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the SRF funding is a low interest loan, 2%, with a 13.3% principal forgiveness. And the need for the project at this point is for construction appropriation by June 2020. So annual town meeting. And the desire is to keep these 3 contracts as one package. It includes the construction phase as well as the engineering during the construction phase and some contingency. So although at this point, we have some numbers for each of the 3 contracts individually, we're still proceeding forward with the design, so those will fluctuate as we get further along. So it should really be thought of as a $5.225 million package.
We paid that with the debt service, 2023.
So we're talking to George about how to pay back the loan. We met with the water commissioners last week, and they're going to get us started on a water rate study to evaluate the needs for modifying the rates to pay back the loan over the 20-year payback period. I know the town is considering part of the payback coming from the water revenue, as well as part of the payback coming from the general fund. And there's also been some discussion about whether the general fund portion should be debt excluded or not.
Okay. Anybody want to speak on that?
I think that, well, I think the rate study is definitely a step in the right direction, because we're not guessing as to where we stand in terms of our rates in comparison to other abutting towns. One of the things during the discussions that we noticed was that the Dudley rates stay pretty much like this, maybe a little bit like this, but if you look at the borrowing and the maintenance that goes on through other towns, you can definitely see the rates increase to meet the needs of consistently maintaining the system. And I think that's part of the issue that we need to address going forward. So that's why we thought the rate study was important.
The problem we've been having is all through the years, everything has been left status quo. Nothing's been changed, added, redone, modified, or whatever. So the system has stayed pretty much stagnant since back in 2000, 2001. Like I said, stations have been just, okay, we got 2 pumping stations, we'll leave it at that. Those days are gone now. I cannot maintain with the new, the town wants to explore new business in here, especially with the new factories or whatever, the Stevens Linen, whatever. You have to have water to do that. You have to have a certain amount of redundancy of water to do that. I've even been looking at a 4th water source down the line further on, just to try to keep up and get our ducks a little bit in a row. The only good thing about this is that it will come to fruition around 2024, if I'm not correct, where our debt service should pretty much be close to elimination from the previous projects. That's a big help. And I cannot,
So what George is saying is we're retiring debt
yes, retiring.
at the time that this SRF loan will come due. So
Every little bit will help us.
So the other part of the issue that we're looking at is the potential of having special legislation that allows us to consider debt excluding the balance after we've reaped the benefits of the 0% construction phase and then the $700,000 forgiveness during the construction after the completion of the construction. Now we should look towards replacing debt, not from we certainly can't pay from the general fund, that loan, but we should certainly consider whether or not you want to recommend debt excluding it, which means that you would spread that cost and that debt over to all taxpayers in town, not just people who are on water and sewer, as opposed to leaving it to water and sewer users to pay off. Treasurer can speak to the benefits of managing that sort of
Please. First of all, it's a sweetheart deal. Right now, Jeff had made mention we're going to have a 13.2%. I've passed down my little amortization table there on a presumed payback. There's $700,000, a little bit less, of principal forgiveness. So from the very beginning, that's great. 20-year loan for 2%. My mortgage isn't 2%, so those are good things. Also, the construction funding, we don't need to go through and borrow $500,000, $1 million as needed and pay interest on that. If you followed what Jeff had said, the state is going to pay the contractors as we go, so there's no real, like a bridge loan if you're your own general contractor building a house. Getting everything paid for, I think everybody needs to take a step back and to look at what the water department can take care of, what the sewer department can take care of, sort of in aggregate. Right now, the sewer department is not going to have, there's no debt next year. All the long-term issuances have been paid off. So that's a great position to be in. It's also a bad position to be in because you haven't floated any loans in the last 20 years. The debt that's going to come off in 2023? 23 is a $1.3 million water project that tied in Dudley, Oxford, and Healy Road. So that's going to free up, well, the principal amount, $1.3 million, 10 years, 130 plus whatever the interest charge was going to be. So reasonably, it says 280 per year is going to be the expected payout. So I guess the discussion is going to be the difference of whatever it is, 140, 150, between the old debt service and what's going to be the new debt service. But again, this is a package. It's not a la carte. The state has deemed this to be a qualified project, for lack of a more descriptive term. As it sits, we had a meeting a whole bunch of people. Jeff was here, Marina was here. We made the largest, most attractive package for the state so that it would hit as many of their talking points as it's going to be, so we could maximize the funding, which is excellent. And this isn't the first time the town has used any of this. As far as putting it on a debt exclusion or what have you, we should, but probably not at this meeting.
No, but we need
Debt,
to-
debt management would be a separate meeting. As far as making sure that the water and coming up the sewer be approved, they're all necessities. I hate to say it. All of the input that we've gotten is, like George said, this is an emergency situation, so we need to take care of it. And I think we've been handed a gift. This is a nice way to get things done. Had we not gotten that funding, we just would be doing the same project, maybe in smaller pieces, at a little bit higher rate. Obviously, you wouldn't have the principal forgiveness of any of it. One thing I need to make mention of, some of the money has already been spent in the design phase. Last fall, there was $900,000, and that's for more design.
Engineering design.
Engineering and design.
Yep.
So what Jeff said, they're paying for construction costs. This is a pretty big project in that 700,000, 760 was previously brought out. I've got it here if I want to dig. Previous monies have been spent to go through for well number 3.
300,000 for well number 3, and I believe now we're at 900 for the next upcoming.
Plus 900, and the
Yes.
900
Yep.
gets all of the engineering design work done so that the 5.225 is going to be for the construction portion of it. So part of the consideration on a debt exclusion would also be, we've got to pay back the 900,000 that we're going to borrow as well. And you're going to see in the sewer project, $125,000 for the third phase of the testing for the inflow and the infiltration. So we need to do these things. We've made some borrowings. Now we need to make the payment work. And that's going to be a bigger meeting. Not that we're not important, but we need to get everybody on board to make sure that I have the loan repayment schedule there. We'd be able to line it up in a spreadsheet and say, given the size of the water department and the sewer department, proposed rate increases and everything, this is a pretty comfortable place to be.
George?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. I just want to quickly mention, we've really tried to get ourselves in a good position to get the most possible revenue, hence the meters. I've level funded most of our budgets down to what we really need. I don't have a big glorified package of anything, so I'm trying to prepare ourselves as best I can for the next couple of years of these projects. These projects are vitally important now. It has to go. So we're trying to get ourselves in the best positions possible to financially take on some of these burdens. We've been running a 3-man crew, myself as one of them, on the water and 2 on the sewer. That's been going on for a while now. That's a lot of stuff going on for just 3 of us, okay? So if you ask me, well, why the superintendent in a hole? Well, that's the answer. I have to work. It's the way we are. We're small. We have to do everything. We don't send things out a lot or have contractors come in. We try to do everything in-house. So I can say the water department and the sewer department are doing their very best to keep within their budgets and to do what they have to do with what they have.
Right.
Any other questions on the projects, on the water side project?
Rick?
You talked about being do-it-yourself. The line replacements are going to be contracted wages out, just for the time. Just, you can do it, but you wouldn't be able to do it as fast as your 5-man crew is going to be limited. So that's bringing in the big guns to be able to get it done in a reasonable.
We, unfortunately, being a small crew with one machine, one day would just be a small amount of pipe, and we'd have to cover the road back up so that it's drivable. You just can't make any good progress that way, and it's not economically smart, because if something happens where we have a main break somewhere else, now the crew has to find a way to abandon what they're doing and address the thing. We have a lot of new DEP requirements that we have to meet every day, along with the normal everyday problems that may arise, customer service, and even now with these meter installs. That's one of our big priorities. We need to get the revenue in, and we're missing a lot of that revenue by not doing those meter installs. So I've really got the guys pushing hard for that. You know, next we have hydrant flushing, then it goes on and on and on, sampling, new sampling, what have you. So, like I said, we can just barely hold what we're doing right now. We need to do at least that
You're
part.
doing a good job, thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, verifying 5.225 million
Correct.
is the request. Okay.
Right.
Is it on the water?
Sewer
Yes,
plant.
no?
All right, sewer time.
Okay, sewer, Marina Fernandez, Senior Project Manager on tie and bond for our sewer side. I'll make a presentation on that. This is the main phase coming up for there'll be a development stage that'll lead into this phase as being the actual work to be done. What did they find? What needs to be repaired, replaced, lined, whatever? She'll get into some of the figures and the money and the details of that project to make it easier.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me present. For the wastewater project, I'd like to step back and explain to you a little bit about what is infiltration and inflow. So we've got our sewer pipe on the ground, and they're subject to both infiltration and inflow. Infiltration is driven by the time of the year. So when you have high groundwater in the spring as we're coming up, we're going to have a high infiltration period. Basically, those are cracks in the sewer pipe, and that groundwater is infiltrating in and making itself in the collection systems. Inflow, on the other hand, is when we have really high periods of rain or long or big rain events. And basically, sometimes you have houses that are direct connected to the sewer. They have their roofs direct connected right into the sewers. You can also have drainage that was connected to the sewer for various reasons. Sometimes in the past, people didn't really feel like that was an issue. Now DEP is really cracking down on it. And what does it do to the system? It impacts your system in several negative ways, one of which it reduces the capacity to convey sanitary flow. Therefore, it may be the leading cause or potentially could cause sewer system overflows. That's when your manhole covers pop, I believe, open, and you see that water coming out, and it can cause public health risks and negatively impact the environment. I believe that the town of Dudley has seen this in the past, back in 2010. You have not seen any in any recent periods, but that's what could potentially happen. It also increases your operating costs for your treatment facilities. The figures here, if you guys want to take a look at, has a bit more information of what infiltration and inflow is. And DEP cares deeply about this, and they have contacted you in the past in 2017, along with many communities in the state of Massachusetts, and have required all communities to analyze II and comply with Massachusetts laws. Diligently, the town has done that, and as part of that requirement, in the spring of 2018, we've done some investigations out. We've input meters on the ground so we could measure the sewer, both in high groundwater periods as well as during rain events, and see how they were reacting. So we were able to identify smaller portions of your sewer systems, saying which one were high infiltration and which one were higher in inflow. We followed up in the spring and the fall of 2019, and we tackled those high infiltration areas and high inflow areas with the best practice in types of investigations to identify sources of infiltration and sources of inflow. Stemming from the in spring 2019 infiltration program, we've identified sewers to be CCTV because they were displaying high infiltration. And this is ongoing now. So Rich mentioned that $124,000 were borrowed last fall to fund this program, which is ongoing. We got a contract out to George to review. And the way that we do this, we set out cameras out in the sewer, and this is going to be going on in the next few weeks, to figure out what structurally, are they looking? Can we go ahead and apply the methods of rehabilitation that are necessary to mitigate infiltration? The methods, and we can go on the next slide, the methods for rehabilitating infiltration can be shown on this video, and hopefully it's going to work. Maybe if you step out of the video or hit enter. If you ask out and go on the slide.
Yeah, let me turn it over.
Okay, sorry about that. It's a cool little video.
I know, the video is the best part. I messed it up.
I don't know if we're gonna have. It's not loading.
It worked on your laptop?
It did.
If you give me 5 minutes, I'll give you,
Let me
5 minutes and I'll get it up.
Yes. Everybody needs to take a break.
I can continue to talk about some of the. Just double check that it is working on my.
Any questions at this point?
Actually, I was going to step ahead. I've gotten to see what's on here.
Yes.
In addition to everything being brought forward, we have 2 articles here. There's a difference between borrowing money, for argument's sake. George needs a pickup truck. Doesn't get any simpler than that, okay? Pay for it in cash, borrow it over 5 years, whatever you're going to do. This project is a little different. There is requested language because it is a little bit different. Like to be able to pass this around. Obviously, this is generational. This was brought forward, meaning bond counsel on their side has said this works. Our bond counsel will review it in addition to, I'm sure KP Law will want to take a look at it. And simply, we're borrowing our money through that program. However, this is the correct wording for it. Also, at the end of this meeting, I'd like to get a vote in the affirmative to put this language with any requested language changes from town council put forward. I'd also want to approve things. What we had in the fall was sort of, things didn't flow as easily as they should have. In the springtime, capital improvement receives the requests. These are the requests that are moved forward. There is going to be a capital improvement plan voted positively out, given to the FAA and the Board of Selectmen for their consideration. Reason I say all of this is Bond counsel went through for the 900,000 saying, wait a second, what was approved in the springtime was just a little bit different than what was approved in the fall. So we rescinded our vote in the fall, re-voted what was accepted at town meeting, and then given to the Board of Selectmen for their approval. So I'd like to take 3 or 4 of the steps out of there. Get the positive approval, if it's not at this meeting, at a successive meeting. And I think I hear a video.
Sorry.
In situ Form's flagship cured-in-place pipe technology, or CIPP, is a pipe within a pipe, installed without digging. Resin-saturated, coated felt tubing is inverted or pulled into the existing pipe. Hot water or steam is then circulated throughout the tubing, clearing the resin and forming a tight-fitting, jointless, corrosion-resistant pipe within a pipe. Surface laterals are then restored using a robotically controlled cutting device. Finally, the rehabilitated pipe is fully inspected by closed-circuit TV. In situ Form's trenchless technology is the world's most trusted pipe rehabilitation solution.
So that shows what the recommendations we have for the sewer, the $1.3 million project would be. So those pipes have already been identified. We will be CCTVing them to make sure that they can receive the treatment. And this is what it's going to look like. So you're going to have 2 benefits. You're going to have the benefits that you're going to be mitigating your infiltration according to DEP. And the second benefit is, again, it's a structural liner. So you're pretty much getting a brand new pipe inside a pipe without having to do the digging, without having to do the project, sorry about that, it keeps popping up. And you don't have to do the police detail and traffic control and all that sort of stuff that your usual dig project requires. So this is the benefit of tackling a project right now while you don't have the pipes currently collapsing on the ground and having George Screw having to run out
Not to say it might not happen, there could be something out there that the system can't do, and we will have to do that, but we're hoping that, yes, no, it wouldn't be that way.
Correct. So, if you don't mind moving for the next slide, please. The 1.3 million project is doing this treatment to 13,000 linear feet of pipe. I already talked about the benefits. It also grouting the services, like you saw, the cutter comes in and cuts out the service, but we also are going to pump grout because a lot of the infiltration does come through that annular space between the liner and the service. Also, one of the reasons why we're CCTVing to make sure that none of the services are broken. And I do understand that the services are owned by the homeowners, but at a minimum, the grouting needs to take place. Otherwise, you just have that infiltration running behind the liner and coming right back into your sewer. And we will be lining manholes along that stretches because otherwise, again, we call it in the office, it's an art. It tends to try to run away from you. So we will be plugging a hole in the sewer, and you would just see that water come right back into the manhole. In terms of funding, just like Jeff has said, it is an SRF 2% interest rate, 20-year loan. The interim loan is 0% interest rate. And for the principal forgiveness that we're looking at a 6.2% or more. The budget for construction phase is 1.3. I do not have the results of the CCTV program because, again, they're going to be taking place this spring. So this number is a budget item number, and it could vary depending on types of findings. It's a conservative number, planning phase number. It could vary depending on what kind of findings we get through the CCTV. The project schedule, CCTV spring, summer this year. We will be doing design right back to back. And looking at public bid the project February, March of next year, and get all the construction contracts executed by June. I believe it wouldn't take that many months, but just being conservative here. And construction will start in the summer of 2021. So next year, you would see this going on. So with that being said, just if you guys have any questions about the sewer project.
Anybody? Questions? Comments?
I forgot to mention that this is what the liner looks like before it gets cured, before it, so the soft liner.
I've seen that done on this old house.
It's gonna be this old sewer department pretty
Right.
soon.
Yeah, I've seen that.
That's going inside the pipe.
Yes.
Yeah,
And what's-
this one,
Poke it with your pen,
this
see
one
if it-
specifically
That is?
Yeah.
is the one that you saw at the, because they were doing the lateral, I believe.
Right,
So
yes.
this is the lateral one, and won't be doing the lateral, we're just doing the main, and it doesn't come with the cuts, and they'll be cut in the field,
Okay.
yeah. They can do about 2 segments a night. It's pretty neat.
So it doesn't require a lot, Mr. Chairman, of having a road roof, though, if you're using that kind of technology.
Absolutely, yeah, no. Sometimes they do if it's a very, very large pipe, but the project locations, we don't have any 54-inch sewer. If it's that big, they can't get through the manhole, but that's not the case of our project.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, this is the first time, or at least the first time I tuned in on it. As far as the laterals go, if you see something with your CCTV, a lateral that is a high infiltration area, is there a contingency I'm asking George, I guess. For some reason, you're on Airport Road and you're lining that, and you know, wait a second, this is all lined, and we know this is where the infiltration is coming.
We'll get an idea first of where it's coming from, how it's coming from, and then address it the right way. I mean, not to say it could be something else going in there that, we were never aware of or whatever. We were gonna find a lot of little areas that we're gonna have to look into and see, but yeah, we'll have to address it one way or the other. Even if we have to dig it up, we'll have to dig it up and check it out.
No, I'm thinking if it's the lateral, the homeowner owns it.
Yep. What do you mean as far as?
Someone with a broken lateral.
Yep.
That's just a constant supply of water going in, groundwater going in, because.
Oh, into the pipe from there.
the pipe.
Oh, yeah. Well, we did a lot of that identification work before with the smoke testing and things too. So we had a set report come out with that, and overall, it wasn't too bad. But if there is something that we missed in all this and we have to go back and address, we'll definitely go back and address it. We're not going to do all this and find out we missed something. Oh, forget it, we're not going to touch it. Oh, no. No, it'll be addressed one way or the other.
So to respond, the CCTV camera stops and it looks, into each one of the laterals. And obviously, without with a more appropriate camera, a lounge camera, which would be a lot more expensive for the town. Without that, we can't go 10 feet into the lateral, obviously. But for the amount of visibility that we have, any identified infiltration, we will provide a list to George. George will have a list for those homeowners, and it will certainly be something that should be discussed within the town, how to deal with these private properties. If they have a broken lateral, if we see what the sort of stuff that we can see and we can tell you, and I can tell George, we had the cameras panning through a lateral, there was clean water coming right through, didn't look hot, didn't look like it had bubbles, it potentially is an infiltration source. So then maybe a letter goes out to the homeowner. George will probably come with some sort of, we will have recommendations for George to bring it up over to the town to decide what's the best method of action there.
So George will get a report of the results.
He will.
Due diligence done, and he'll take the appropriate actions on his end.
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions, comments, concerns?
Mr. Chairman, what was the final tally for the I&I part?
1.3 million.
That was it?
And there is a principal forgiveness, was it 80,000? Yeah, I can't remember.
It's 6.2% of that is the principal forgiveness portion.
So,
I have another sheet going around that had forgiveness.
Amortization for this project, yeah.
85.8 is the loan forgiveness, roughly.
Mr. Chair,
yes, ma'am.
it's structural once it's heat, the heat
Correct.
process is put on it.
It,
So what type of warranty comes with this project and this pipe within a pipe system that you're?
it's a 25-year life expectancy. It's a 50-year life expectancy, but it has a 25-year warranty. When we put this project out to bid, the video I showed you is from Institute Form, but there are also other manufacturers, and they provide different types of warranties. We will provide you with a spec so that the project can be bid, and it will require a warranty. It will require the right types of installation. We've had contractors in the past that didn't cure for the right amount of time, or they didn't make the appropriate, there cannot be infiltration coming in as you're trying to put the liner in. The water will not make the harden adequately, and you will have bubbles created. So that's why we also, as part of the program, we ask them to post CCTV this, so that, you know, our engineers can look at it for you and say, all right, these look good. There is no sign of bubbling or no sign of collapsed liner. So everything will be spelled out in the contract.
Excellent. Anybody else have any comments, questions, concerns?
Just one more slide I wanted to just advise you on.
Okay.
This is the SRF project schedule, or a typical one. Just to let you know that it's a formal program. There's a lot of people involved at the state. It's color-coded. There's the green represents the trust, which is where the money comes from. The blue represents the Mass DEP. We work with them on the project procurement and approvals. And then there's you as the town at the bottom in the orange, and us as the engineer supporting you. And there's certain deadlines along the route that get hit, just to make sure that you understand it's a formal program.
Okay.
Kind of ironic, they all hit at the same time and doing the same process, so maybe it's a good thing that we kind of combine it all and, you know, bite the bullet now. But
Right.
like I said, it's just as important, it's mandated on the sewer side, and so it's something we need to do. We can't get out of that.
Great job. Great job. All of you. Anybody else have anything for them right now?
It's a lot to swallow, I know.
Sure is.
If there's any other questions online, feel free to give us a call, or anybody, I'll have an answer for you, or try to get an answer for you if there's any concerns, even the public itself. It's a lot there. Like I said, instead of, and Rich said it best, instead of piecemealing things up, which commonly is the nice thing to do, cheapest way, but it's not the smart way anymore. It's just gonna get us more in trouble.
Right.
And behind on things.
Yes,
So,
he's mentioned that before as well.
Yeah.
It's a bundle. Excellent. Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was just going to make the comment that excellent presentation. This is about the third time I've sat through it. And if you have a question of a highly technical nature, you can get a plain English response. So that is good.
Always
Sort
good.
of. There's a great deal of science behind it, but there's a very practical, short answer, very responsive by email. You see, we have the charts drawn out. We have a whole bunch of things, almost a roadmap drawn for us. So things are good. I anticipate things running well. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Oh, I gotta put this thing back up.
Pull it out. Thank you.
And this is yours. You can do my stuff next if you want, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Administrator, would you be so kind?
Yep, just let me, put this on the screen and,
What haven't we voted on for these projects?
No, we'll have our own discussion on the water and sewer project. So, you saw the 17-18 timeline. As I take this, all of our previous votes, we'll go with the water. You did some research, some engineering and design work for 3, few other items, and then we had our $900,000 vote. So, up to this point, we have a little bit of construction work and a whole lot of design. And the idea was to make a giant package. Now, when it says drinking water versus clean water, they're not saying sewer, it's clean water. So, you've approved all of the planning, engineering, design phase up till now. The construction cost for all of the water projects is 5.225. So we've approved getting, it's now a shovel-ready project, with the exception of a handful of items. You need to go through and bid out. They're gonna subdivide the 5.225 somehow, but it's a package funding source. So we're gonna go through and borrow from the SRF drinking water 5.225 for construction of all of those items listed. It's going to...
Mr. Cavagnani, for a minute, just a 5-minute recess.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you, sir. If everybody's ready, I'll call the meeting back to order.
yeah.
Calling
Is
Yes.
the question, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Mayor, what's the first, what's the construction portion of the 5.22?
Yeah.
Mason Road to West Main,
Yes.
main replacement, pump station 3, then maintenance and cleaning of the Dresser Hill Road and Bates Road tanks.
I have a sheet from a February 15th meeting that,
Simplifying it.
How much is it?
so I guess what needs to be emphasized is that up to this point, it's been planning, designing, engineering.
The 900,000 has been,
Right. And there's
Preliminary.
additional money before that.
Okay.
but I agree with Mr. Mayor, we have to keep very close track on what's being proposed and spent, because it shift. I mean, imagine trying to wrangle this in from the beginning. Shift,
No.
shift, 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 shift,
wouldn't.
shift, shift. So,
So, I guess, are we putting this together as one article? Or are you gonna put it with all these projects, separated
was-
by the amounts?
well, I don't think we can separate the amounts. I think we need to do it as like a water infrastructure project for 5.225, and then a sewer project, infrastructure project for 1.3, and just package it water and sewer, because, I mean,
Well, they
I don't
mentioned
know
if you
that we
do it
break it down.
individually, it's gonna fluctuate the price anyways. They can't guarantee what it's gonna be. That's why they want to bundle it as well.
Bundle and save.
Thank you.
I mean,
I'm just thinking that the warrant article is gonna be this long, because you're gonna have to describe these projects.
Yes, it will
right?
be.
yeah.
So wouldn't it be better to have 2 or 3, maybe 4 separate, to
Because
let
you-
people
be-
know what we're doing?
Because you can't.
And I think,
I think, and Mr. Chairman.
The financing
Yes.
is, excuse me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
One of the reasons they made their trip here tonight, and one of the reasons they're gonna make their trip to the joint FAA and Selectmen meeting, is to go through and have those questions answered. They're gonna be available for the town meeting. So if there's a question, it's this water project is like a living organism. You have a bunch of wells feeding into the pipes, feeding into your holding tanks, and then you have distribution to the homes. So that's how it was packaged, so that if you're going to get an attractive funding mechanism, it's going to maximize what they could have put together. I don't think they could have added more to this and still kept it within the scope of things. We run from Schofield Ave down to West Main Street, then up to Mason Road where the piping is, and then your 2 holding tanks. There is probably an expansive proposal sent to Boston. I can't imagine all of this was approved on a single page. I want to say they went through and said from this point to that point, but they have the 3 contracts listed out. The pump station 1, it's the replacement well field. Contract 2 would be the piping, and then the contract 3 would be the water storage tank rehabilitation. If you really had to just chop it up into a few pieces.
Correct.
And that's one of the reasons I think we need to continue with that, because it's one giant project, and really the litmus test is that the state has approved it. For what's that, we've had a couple of meetings on these things. Mr. Root has been here. We had a meeting with the water commissioners, water sewer commissioners, going over the project. Really, it was all put forth with the best intention to sort of maximize the effectiveness. You have a good team here putting things together.
and I think, Mr. Chairman, it would be hard to put this, it would be nice to be able to better track it and vote for it, like like Mr. Mayor said, but to put it on a menu, in like a menu format. I mean, like repairing the well, we're talking about,
Bates tank or something.
you know, Bates tank, or, we're down to 2 pump stations. DEP is requiring us to have a backup. We've gotten to the point where DEP is actually stepping in and saying, listen, fix it.
Right.
So, to give a menu, it's not really even a realistic thing to provide people with that option, because do you fix the transmission, or do you know, put 4 wheels on it?
Right.
What's gonna be more important? That's literally where we're at.
Okay. No, I didn't know if we should have each project as a separate article voted on, and then the financing of the combined projects voted on. That way, I'm just saying, you know, when you have a long article,
We have.
you
we
get
have
a lot of
long-
questions.
And that's for compliance reasons. So to go through, because the question came up, you're not the first person to say, hey, wait a second. If, once the financing's in place, if there's a question paying the bill, coming up, argument's sake, 2025, well, maybe you cut the project in half. You can't, this is an egg. This is the size of the egg, because a year and a half ago, everyone sat down and they bundled it to make it an attractive package. And to be honest, there were enough needs. We're fortunate enough to get enough needs related to be able to bundle it. It's not an issue here and an issue there, totally unrelated. They all, I can't say it, but they'll float to one another. But this, I'm sure you can get a copy of what was submitted to both the water and sewer departments, their approval, or what was sent to the SRF. I'm sure Jeff would be very responsive, and Marina, to an email saying, in 1 paragraph or less, what are we doing on Station 1? Station 1 is a shallow well, you can't use it because A, B, and C. You're going to a deep well, he showed the tank, you need to make these upgrades to bring it out of the 70s and into 2020 compliance. And obviously, if we're doing something, it's not supposed to be just enough, it's supposed to have a usable life. Marina made mention of that when we're lining a pipe, warranties and what have you. Inevitably, there's going to be a failure somewhere, and you're going to have to dig up a section of the road, but you're hoping to minimize it. Because that was one of my questions. Why don't we, best bang for the buck, to go through and reline rather than to start excavating, because the second you start disturbing something, you don't know what's down there.
Everything breaks.
Right.
Okay. We're almost there.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Could I
sir.
ask everyone to take a quick glance through the wording that's on here? Again, post 2008, 2009, compliance. Everyone wants to make sure that what's being borrowed is done properly, no questions, one of the compliance questions that the town of Dudley had to answer was, do you own the land the well is on? The town of Dudley Water Department owns it. It's not municipally owned and run by a third-party contractor. So really, there's a checklist. We're not the only community who's done this, so along those lines, we want to make sure that we run through it once and we hit all of those marks they know are going to be asked. At one point, I would imagine there's going to be a word or two that's going to be changed, but the intent is to go through and have the funding done with the mechanism recommended, or presented, excuse me. I know the 900,000 that was borrowed in the fall can't go through this. SRF is paying for the construction of the projects, not for. But on a positive note, I believe last week, we had a short note settle for just under 1%. So
That's assuming the first.
when mortgage rates are competitive, so are ours.
Finance committee stuff.
Yeah, agree.
And this is subject to town council wordage verification anyways.
Yep. And
Okay.
but I guess my motion will be the main intent of both of those are, should be preserved.
Yeah, everything every article you see on the warrant goes through town council before it makes it onto
Okay,
the town meeting. Everything's reviewed in advance.
okay. Okay.
And
Yeah,
take
that's
back
fine.
your two,
These are,
pardon?
do you know these?
I'll,
Use them if you.
I'll make sure everybody gets copies of these, plus that's my only debt sheet for those two. Oh, yeah, Snoopy's already drawn on one, and tic-tac-toe, Mark lost, and
Okay. Oh, here's the other one, Rich. All right.
well, I can make sure, if I have these in front of me, quickly, it's gonna list out for the water department, 5.225, the loan forgiveness, 689,700. So the net loan obligation goes down to 4.535300. That's pretty significant. 2%, as much as we're in a low interest rate environment, still really attractive. The clean water, which would be the sewer, 1.3 million, is 85,800 in principal forgiveness. So really, the state is just under 800,000, giving us a
Okay,
nice little gift there. So
good. Thank you. To move on to the town administrator with capital improvement memo. If you want to go over that, sir.
Mr. Chairman, my stuff falls under municipal complex and MIS for right now.
Okay.
The first one is a municipal HVAC system upgrades, and my source of funding is that I would pursue that under a Green Communities grant. I think it'll be multi-phase, but I wanted to put it on your radar screens to at least begin with. Will be no cost from the general fund, and I'm not asking for any money to debt exclude or borrow or anything like that.
Okay.
The second one is security for all town buildings. I'm asking for up to 45,000. Some of that a majority of it will be spent for, to comply with our cybersecurity vulnerability study that was completed last night, and the results showed, among other things, that needs to be addressed. Our new phone system, I've requested $20,000 from free cash for a new phone system. The phone system we're currently using was moved from the old town hall, so I can't tell you much more than that, but it's getting about to be time
Okay.
that we could upgrade that. One thing I want to say about this, I'm going to go back to the security for all town buildings right now. I am looking for other sources of funding. I think that I won't even say that. I'm looking for other sources of funding. I'd like to put it on as an article, and if I have those other sources of funding secured, and I think I might be able to before the town meeting, I'll move that we pass it over and let it go. But I think it's a critical thing that we address based on our vulnerability report and some other issues that we're trying to address. A lot of that security has been, I would try to address from our maintenance account, which included some installation and repair of cameras and upgrades. But that money only goes so far, so. The final The final request, I'm going to actually remove that, maintenance on dams for the time being. I think by the time I get my action grant approved, the fiscal year will be over.
Okay.
But I am trying to get an action grant for that. And the actual number to address all the grants and all the dams in town is significantly higher than $20,000. I just put it on the list as a place marker for now. It's about, one of our more critical dams is about $900,000 to address, that we're required to address. So, needless to say, I'm looking for non-general fund sources of funding to address those. There's about 7 that need to be done.
Okay.
And then finally, the cybersecurity request. Of all of these municipal complex requests on the list, in the MIS request, I think that one's the priority. I do have some money for cybersecurity through a grant that I wrote, but I think that additional $15,000 from any source that, any source that we can attain, including free cash, is a huge priority as well. So security for town buildings and cybersecurity are our 2 main priorities. And the cybersecurity element in the public safety upgrade security elements are both to address a lot of personal information and keep it safe and secure from, from hackers and that sort of thing.
Okay, anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Yes, ma'am.
The security for all buildings, talking both physical and cyber on that item? Or is the cyber completely separate from that?
Well, some of it, it's, I put it under physical, but, so our DMARC rooms and our network rooms would want to enhance the security there, so it's more of a physical security enhancement. But it goes hand in hand with the cybersecurity side of it.
Okay. And on the cybersecurity side, we also probably leverage some insurance as well on cyber, for cyber liability, et cetera, for the town?
We have the correct, I believe that was part of the assessment, we do have the correct amount of insurance for that. No question. Well, look who you're sitting next to. You think you don't have enough insurance?
Where are we vulnerable? Everywhere?
I'm happy to tell you offline, I don't want to broadcast that.
Understood.
Yeah, I'm happy to show you offline, though.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else?
Mr. Chair, so we're looking at basically 2 articles right now? 45
For
for the
the
security
municipal,
and
yeah.
20 for the new phone? Is that what you're looking for, or?
Let me
for
double
spring?
check. Make sure I didn't miss anything.
I mean, the 15 wouldn't fall under
I know,
this.
but I'm trying to get into the habit of,
Doing everything?
I'm trying to get, unless you object, I'd probably put 20 on it, just to be on the safe side. We just got the results from our study last night, and I don't think 20 would be unreasonable to ask for. So the HVAC, that's correct. The HVAC system upgrade, Green Communities Grant, no request. Security for all town buildings, 45 is a good number. That would be an article.
Yep.
And it's vague like that because of obvious reasons. The new phone system, that's by the seat of our pants at this point. We can't even get equipment, replacement parts for it. So if we had a major failure, it's not a big deal, but the town hall loses its phone system, so that's something that we should probably put to the top of the list.
Okay.
And the cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity.
I am looking for other sources of funding, but the cybersecurity and the public safety security needs to be funding one way or the other. I think that I can get funding for both, but I'm not positive. But we can't let it go until we can. For that amount of money, it's not a lot of money. It's too important to let go.
Now, the guardrail for the highway
Yeah.
was 15. That was total in 15. Didn't they come with a number ahead, or was that the number if somebody else did it? It was 20.
Yeah, if somebody else did it, it was gonna be like
nice.
triple the price or something
Yeah.
ridiculous, so they're doing it.
They actually put it in, he said it took a while, but it only took, it took 2 days, maybe because they're not used to doing it, but it really wasn't that long, you know, before they had that up and in place.
Rich has a question.
Rich, yes, sir.
I think Mr. Ruda hit on something. You made mention that we don't need approval. I'm on the other side saying anything that we're going to spend more than $20,000 on, if it's identifiable as a capital expense, I think we should give approval. Best example would be the Green Communities Grant. Regardless of how it's funded,
You're right. And
this committee should raise their hand saying, yes, this is worthwhile. We're the people who sit here and,
Mr. Chairman, I did misspeak with that. I agree 100%. Anything under 20, I didn't need approval for. And I wasn't, what I meant to say was I wasn't looking for any source of revenue outside the grant. So, I agree 100%. As a matter of fact, I'm going to suggest when I get this god-awful policy done and can present to the board and it's acceptable, I'm going to suggest that we, all of our Chapter 90 projects, that even though they're already fully funded, we start evaluating those and trying to keep track of that going forward next year. So, no, I agree 100%.
Okay.
That Green Communities Grant, you don't anticipate anything back from them by spring town meeting, right?
No, but I'm not going to ask for, it's not that critical of a spending item that we're going to need anything immediately.
Right.
If anything, we can phase it in and have them come in and take a look at the engineering side of it, and maybe there's parts and pieces that can be replaced or sections that can be upgraded to make it run more efficiently and effectively. But no, if we don't get that money, I'm sure none of the Green Communities Grant people are listening, but it's not a deal breaker if we don't have that money. Everything works.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Good. We've got a draft memo from the town administrator for this committee. It's policy and guidance for fiscal year '21. If anybody's read it and have any questions, comments, or concerns.
Mr. Chairman, I realize that I owe you a policy to review, and I didn't want to give it short shrift and not come up with something that we put in, that had the work put behind it. So I came out with this memo, and I'm kind of glad I did, because I sat with Mr. Carmignani and the town accountant with S&P 500, and this helped out that we had at least this in place for a capital improvement plan. Essentially, I just wanted to bring to, I think part of our overall policy for consideration should be, part of the job of this committee is to identify recommended sources of funding, borrowing, for example. On page 2, I set, from what I had read, I set a $75,000 mark on it. We should really think about borrowing it if it falls over $75,000. That was based on the sample the consultant gave me, but the sample wasn't, it was just that, it was a sample. Dudley can do what Dudley wants to do. So if you wanted to set the bar higher for this committee to consider recommending the source of funding being borrowing, or lower, then we can go ahead and do that. Another source of funding, when we make our recommendation from this committee, considers available revenues. The capital improvement is going to have, you have a stabilization account now, which could be a source of funding. Sewer water enterprise fund, the retained earnings that George mentioned tonight he wants to use towards his pickup truck. Free cash warrant articles, self-explanatory. Departmental revolving funds. If we talk about a lease, and if we start going down that road with the police chief, one of the things that I'm going to strongly recommend is as we lease vehicles or come up with vehicles, that we look at the revolving fund, the cruiser revolving account, to limit the expense. And the only reason I'm looking at a lease is because I'm trying to decrease the capital outlay that we're looking at from year to year. I'd rather put it into stabilization, I'd rather put it into, you know, another saving source than to continuously push it out as quickly as we make it. The departmental operating budgets, we could very easily come in, you know, for example, this $15,000 request for cybersecurity. I put it in here, but I think at some point, you know, when somebody comes in with a request, we should hear it. If they want to, you know, maybe somebody comes in with a request and they want to take it out of, you know, an emergency situation, they want to have it authorized to take out of the capital stabilization account. If it comes in at 15 grand, let them come before the committee, or 10 grand, and maybe that can be a source of revenue, or maybe it could be right out of their own operating budget. You could make the recommendation to take the money and replace it at another time. Could be like, so the source of funding could be actually a transfer at a town meeting. You have a surplus in this line item, you need more in this line item. My recommendation is you take it from there. There's nothing that says that this committee can't make that recommendation. So as we evaluate these requests, you know, the premise is we have this spreadsheet, which is a capital improvement program, where we've sat with all the department heads and they've figured out what they need for the next 10 years, and we're trying to assign numbers and sources of funding to it, and real numbers and real sources of funding. And that infers that there's going to be some sort of priority, some townwide spending, public policy priority to how we allocate this money. And that's to the extent the selectmen are going to have input over that and set that policy and set that priority. For example, if next year it's all cybersecurity all the time, this committee at least has a set of guidelines to say, you know, the backhoe may not be the priority this year, but protecting our network or replacing this vital equipment and spending all this money on cybersecurity is the priority. So that's something that the committee would consider. Other things that would be considered: smoothing out the tax rate, balancing debt service, and Rich can speak endlessly to that. Determining debt service levels and debt capacity, another great, you know, a conversation for another time, but it's a conversation we absolutely have to have. Because one thing I've found out and come to the realization is the amount of debt we carry and retire has a major impact on trying to get a budget together from year to year. It has a major impact. It's considered, it looks, when you try to come up with a budget in the spring, it's actually a source of revenue. So when you have a sudden decrease in that source of revenue, you know, that has to be considered. And also the way Rich structures the loans and the way things are paid off, it's not always apples to apples. So there's some room to have a conversation. I think it's important that we do have a conversation about debt service. Maximizing other financing sources, including reallocated capital, project funds, state and federal grants, special assessments. So maybe the recommendation is, at some point from this committee, it's to, well, we started the conversation tonight. The enterprise account pays for some of it, the water sewer users pay for some of it, maybe we debt exclude some of it, but that's part of the work of this committee. Stabilization funds, incurring debt paid off through the general fund, which I don't love, but certainly in your purview. And pay as you go. So for example, instead of a capital asset, it's a capital project, pay as you go. You know, you budget 15 grand a year over the course of 10 years, and you replace 5 years, and you replace your entire network for the town hall, that kind of thing. What else? It's not lost on me that there's a lot of other policies that need to get done too. So the treasurer is working we're working on a debt policy. I know you have a investment policy. We need to work out a debt policy. We need policies in terms of how we handle undesignated fund balances and free cash and other unanticipated revenues. For example, I've sponsored an article for this coming Springtown meeting, where we're gonna be able to take a portion of the revenue that we derive from DMA from the grow facility, and immediately before even it goes anywhere, it goes right into a stabilization account or other account that we may want to designate. So that we're getting closer to a policy on that. Financial reserve policy, that's goes hand in hand with what I was just talking about. Capital stabilization policy. Financial reserves consistent with these policies, and financial forecasting. We've got to do a better job of that. Getting this budget together this year has been difficult, to say the least. The financial forecasting, we have to do a better job with that. So we need to work towards all of these policies in addition and in complement to this policy that we've put together. So that, in a nutshell, in a 7-minute nutshell, is why I can't give you a comprehensive policy yet to review, mark up, and approve, because this is as far as I could get, because every single thing I came up with hinged on something we don't yet have. It's hinged on something that we need. Richard?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, it's a generational policy. The idea was mid-90s when the Capital Improvement Committee was formed, or somewhere. We should have been building off of it. And as compliance changed, as the opinions, the GASB, whoever, Standard & Poor's, whoever has input, we should have been building off of that policy, as opposed to town administrator and a blank piece of paper and maybe a similar draft policy from someone else. So you've gone a long way to go from nothing to a pretty good framework, hitting all the major points. I think it's excellent. It's something to build on. Doesn't need to be granular in detail in some things, but in others it does. Work in progress. I'm very happy with what I've read. On a separate note, leases are of no use to us. If we're borrowing money and it's less than 1%, that's almost free money at that point, so.
It was more the capital outlay that I was, I mean, because of the program putting a cruiser on every single year, it just seems like it's gonna become,
Well,
it's just gonna become a no item when somebody gets upset after seeing a cruiser every single year versus buying a $50,000 cruiser buy a $50,000 cruiser, or pay $10,000 for 5 cruisers on lease for that year and the year after and the year after, and retire it in a way that it's not always a new one. It's
a lease is you gain the value in the depreciation for the 5 years.
Right.
I'm a tax expert over here. Nichols grad, too. But, I mean, really, we're getting the best prices on things, so I don't think it's gonna be as advantageous. I agree with you. Maybe that needs to be part of this bigger plan, in that every year the police chief should plan to have X amount of vehicles there. You know, for argument's sake, if he's got 10 vehicles and they last for 5 years, his budget should have the 110,000, the 255,000s in there. We need to have it. The idea that it becomes a no article, I guess it's incumbent upon us to defend it. You can't put somebody out there in a 14 or 15-year-old cruiser, and then all of a sudden the talk around the water cooler is somebody gets stuck because the cruiser couldn't bring them home at 2 o'clock in the morning. You wouldn't want to get to that point. But in the grand scheme of things, what we spend per month or per year is forever growing.
well, maybe it's a stopgap. We can talk about it further. It's,
Absolutely. The one thing I did want to add, and as much as we have green communities and action grants and chapter money on there, this committee should be approving all vehicles regardless of the cost, even if it's a gift. The approval of something, motor vehicle that we need to insure should be something that, obviously, we're not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth, but it eventually would be part of the fleet, the insurable fleet that we have. I'd love to get to the point where, you know, we have a benefactor offering us a free police cruiser or what have you, hybrid or something like that. It wouldn't be unknown for someone to come forward to offer a substantial gift. We should still approve it.
And what's the purpose of that?
For a gift, even though there wouldn't be any funding,
Right.
the idea that the gift of an all-electric municipal vehicle valued at $50,000 be gifted here, the idea that it went through the process regardless of how it was acquired, it still passed muster. It was still something that the town of Dudley should use.
So we're going off the value of whatever the gift is to determine if we meet the threshold of a $20,000 or?
Right. The best example up there would be a Green Communities grant for $250,000 for the HVAC system up here. Ultimate cost to the town, maybe a stamp, a couple of emails, maybe a toll phone call. It's not $20,000, but it's a $250,000 value to the town. So in the event a police cruiser, a rescue lifeboat for the ice or what have you, something up more than $20,000 comes in, it could be a car dealership donating an electric municipal vehicle to us.
Right, that's what I was just looking at, was the threshold.
The
Because
threshold would be
the source of funding is the source of funding,
Right,
free or
would
whatever.
be the $20,000
Okay.
reasonably.
The capital equipment is what has to be approved. The source of funding is out of our purview right now, so.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think the source of funding is an important thing for, I mean, when you have all the ducks in a row,
Right.
it's probably more important for the, it's less important if a department head comes in, based on a conversation at a selectmen's meeting, it says, I want to buy a flying carpet, and it's $350,000, and it's going to have gold beads hanging off it, it's going to be awesome, and I get total approval to do it. Has nothing to do with this committee.
Right.
Well, how are you going to pay for it, and how does it affect our other priorities? It should never be a yes, it should never be a no to a department head, because it's not your purview to say no. It's just your purview to say, we don't recommend that you should buy a flying carpet this year. You certainly shouldn't pay for it any revenue source associated with the town. But it's never, you never want to find yourself in a position where you're saying, no, I don't think so, because you're not elected to do that. The selectmen are.
This committee is on, our job is to make a recommendation to the selectmen
Correct.
on the projects that come
Right.
to us, not to make decisions on those projects per se.
The best way to have this committee break down is to start to go in that direction, and then the party's over. There's a lot, I think, like Rich said, it's more important that we look at the financial side of it and how. And even if we got a freebie, was it on the list? Do we at least know enough to take it off the list? It's no longer a requirement, so we're not trying to figure it into our budget, or we're tying up other sources of funding. You know, that's the kind of.
I think over the last few years, the committee's pretty much has done that, right? Most of the requests that come to us, whether it's a new police cruiser, we'll know how much in the police cruiser revolving fund is gonna be applied towards that. I mean, we don't make the decision on, whether or not it's gonna be free cash or debt exclude or what, but we do, most of our capital projects involve somebody, some of the financing part of it too. So.
I also think the wish list going out 5 years is our list tonight is very well truncated. So it's been pared down from my goodness, I'm looking at line 120 there. So really, I'm figuring there's some substantial requests that have been blocked out for tonight.
Yeah.
So moving forward, it's sort of the lead as far as need and our ability to go through and get them purchased, you know, on a grant or what have you. You know, we're not nodding our head saying, yes, all 300 items are yours. You know,
Right.
FAA, pay for it, or figure out how to pay for it.
Right.
So, yeah, sort of hand in hand.
Right.
I don't think this group, this committee has ever put forth an unreasonable list as far as length goes. And I don't think we've ever been presented with something where we sort of shook our head saying, whose idea was this? The magic carpet, I guess, is a bit of a stretch, but if the fire chief said, we need a helicopter, maybe we would need a little more deliberation. Everything here
Yeah.
seems to be just the next step up.
So in a nutshell, we're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Good.
CIP spreadsheet was the next on the agenda.
So I guess the question is, how, are we going to meet again before the 20? So I'm gonna roll out the budget, my budget proposal on the 23rd, which will be in draft form anyway. For a joint FAA selectmen meeting, it'll be 10 minutes worth of budget talk, and I'm handing it over. Are we gonna meet again before that? Because we need to vote on the capital improvement program plan for for fiscal year '21.
Mhm.
Do you wanna leave it
March
open?
23rd.
March 23rd, yeah. It's not gonna be the big meeting, it's the, here's what I'm thinking, here's
Right,
my
yeah.
proposal, take it home and digest it a little bit.
What do you think?
So you're meeting with the selectmen on the 23rd, you said it was?
FAA and selectmen on the 23rd. We're gonna give the Camden presentation. When he's done, I'll present my proposed draft budget, go over it for a few minutes. And that's like, you know, like every year,
Right.
the kickoff meeting.
Right. And you'll know better where you stand with free cash possibly and all that.
Well, free cash doesn't really get certified until, I have to be honest with you, most of this stuff, if not, you know, any free cash items, I'm probably gonna request that we pass them over till the fall until the free cash is certified, because I don't wanna hamstring us. We've actually taken a different approach at the budget this year, and it includes like a real budget for the year with what departments actually need to operate, so. There's not a lot of extra laying around, there's some, but not
I don't
for
think we've
this kind of stuff.
ever bought anything
In the
this
spring,
Yeah.
ever. We balanced the
I
budgets.
could think
and that
of
was
one
it.
or two, but
Very rarely.
sort of outside of this.
My recommendation is gonna be to pass the ambulance in the spring, because we won't have enough time to do it in the fall because of the ballot vote. And then we'll vote to debt exclude it at the selectmen level and put it on the November ballot. Yeah, we can't put that off till October. The problem with this schedule is, even if we did approve these, we wouldn't have time to get anything debt excluded on the ballot for the spring vote. It's May 18th and then it's June 15th. There's no way we'd have enough time to do that, so. There's not a huge drag on free cash requests this time around. This isn't really that bad at all.
Pickup trucks. That's about it.
So will the FAA have to get together before that 23rd meeting? No.
I mean, this is out of the capital improvement
Right.
purview, but yeah, I mean, FAA, I think we should sit in with them.
On the
Just
23rd.
like, yeah, on the 23rd, and just kind of get
I think it's a joint
a,
meeting, right?
It's a joint meeting, and it's,
No, and
I
just
think it's a
kinda-
good idea that you see the DMA,
we'll have a kind of a preliminary idea of how the budget sits and,
yeah.
and some possible things.
And, Mr. Chairman, you were going to meet one more time prior to, I feel we should have a basic framework when we leave tonight. Town administrator gets to build his budget around it. Obviously, he's representative of the board and what their priorities might be, percentage chance of whatever's happening. But he should have a good framework to work with, leaving here tonight, but I'd still like to meet just before, so everybody's got a chance, at the very least, we send out what we have to the members who aren't here, and we have our meeting and we get a chance to revisit it, so that later on, you don't go, wait a second, I was thinking about something, and we'd have a chance to alter your plan.
Right.
I say a framework plan. I can't imagine what ultimately goes to you would be too far off of this, but we'd, for argument's sake, Bob's not here, whoever else could be here, Paul. Everybody gets their chance to have their second look at it. And again, somebody's going to get an email, somebody's going to read through some things and say, hey, wait a second, maybe we wait on that, or maybe we don't. Maybe there's something on here that we had forgotten. Is that okay?
Okay, what's a good day?
I thought you were thinking the 23rd before.
Want to do it before the FAA board?
It would be a six.
That's a Monday, though, isn't it? Tough for you, Mike?
23rd's a Monday.
Not gonna be your bet.
What's the 18th? I have a meeting on the 18th that says joint FAA Board of Selectmen. Is that?
That's the April, is that April
That's-
18th, I think?
Is that the initial meeting that we decided on?
That
Remember,
could
I
very
had
well
this
have
Yeah.
been
I put it on my calendar,
on that meeting, but it was too late.
so I can take this off my calendar.
So the Monday, the 23rd would be the
That would be the joint.
joint meeting.
6 o'clock?
You want to have one prior?
I won't be able to attend that, but
Okay, well,
but
Well, we're gonna have another meeting,
We're gonna
joint
have-
FAA meeting with the selectmen, so we could have another bite of the apple. I think it's a good idea to leave it unvoted on, just in case things change.
I'm the one who had to take the nitroglycerin pills when the attorney is calling saying.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that, leave it that long.
Specifically, this hasn't been addressed.
Yes, sir.
what exactly do you want to approve tonight? Can you give me an outline?
I'm happy, I'd love to go through and get approval. I'm looking to make 4 motions. I'd make a motion that we approve the $1.3 million sewer project, and or maybe we can make it and then we could accept the motion separately for the recommended language to be submitted for town meeting approval, once it's gone past town council, and then the 5.225, and then
I wouldn't object to the 1.3 and the 5.5 approving that, but
Yeah.
the language still has to go to the attorney, so why
Right.
would approve that?
Yeah.
because that's part of the
And-
compliance.
And do we need to approve the language of the warrant article? We only have to approve the construction costs, right? So I'm not, it seems like we're mixing finance committee, capital improvement committee together.
If you just simply, if you vote on the 21 program, which is basically this spreadsheet, we could have another meeting and you could, as long as we don't transmit to the selectmen that this is voted upon and this is the way we're gonna do it, you can leave this open or reopen it anytime before the article, before the warrant is posted, and add or detract from it. I'm sure you can.
Is there a time frame that you need to?
One of the issues that was pointed out, there needs to be a physical plan presented to the Board of Selectmen, and there was a time frame by June, whatever,
Oh, yeah.
for them to deliberate on.
What I'm saying is, over the course of the next month, I'm not talking about going all the way to June, I'm just saying, we don't have to approve this tonight and then walk away. We can vote on it tonight before the selectmen vote to approve it, and modify it at any time, or take or remove anything off, because you can vote again. Vote to
Because you
add.
need multiple meetings,
Or vote
not-
to remove. I know what you're saying, I'm not suggesting that we wait till June, we tie this up at the same time the FAA and the selectmen tie up the budget, as far as I'm concerned, or before. Well, no, explain to me the time frame. I'm happy to accommodate
I-
it. You're afraid that it's not gonna get voted on?
I'm afraid it's not gonna get voted on.
Okay.
I want to go through and make sure that we've made our mark here. Here it
Yeah.
is, approved and move forward. And again, it's under the presumption that, yes, this board deems this an appropriate project and would like to see it move forward.
Okay.
So that I very specifically can see water and sewer projects on an agenda posted.
Mm-hmm.
Out of that meeting, voted in the affirmative, these two projects, reflected in the minutes, handed to the Board of Selectmen at this meeting, these two projects, and them accepting the report of, actually, it would be the interim report, because we reserve the right to amend it at any point up until the end of the year. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. So why don't we just start with a series of motions? The first motion would be that the capital improvement committee approve the water infrastructure project presented tonight for $5.225 million. In the second project that was presented, the sewer infrastructure project as presented here tonight for $1.3 million. That would be my motion.
You're an ex officio.
Am I, oh, I thought we had to amend that. So somebody could so move that. Or we could do it all at once. We could say, based
I'll
on
make-
tonight's meeting, we could, you know, the committee can move to remove the police, at the police chief's request, we remove the police server request from the 21 draft capital improvement program. We approve the 350 highway pickup for 48. We could do it all at once.
Spreadsheet back up?
Yeah, if we
Maybe
can
we have the spreadsheet, sir.
Maybe you can, but maybe not. Do you see how hungry Michelle is getting over there?
Nope, you've been hacked.
Uh-oh. Connecting you at 9 to base. Yeah, here it comes. Want me to zoom out a little bit?
So do we not need a motion on the police and fire then?
Well, you could move to approve this plan. We can just list what was approved tonight and approve that as part of the
Its
FY
entirety.
'21 capital improvement plan, including the water and sewer stuff. I changed those amounts, obviously.
It should all, but it should total up. Would you be able to go a little bit lower down to the library?
See, that's the case for, did we ask him to come, Michelle? So that would be the case to add them, you know, you have a future meeting and add to the FY '21 plan these requests. How have you done it in the past?
Well, apparently, what we've done in the past hasn't passed muster because we got the tisk.
Well, the problem was that the selectmen never voted to approve it, right?
Correct.
So we can remedy that. We'll do that with one of our joint meetings to approve the budget. You're already on the agenda for it. Or if you feel more comfortable, we'll approve it before that, or we'll do it tonight. Or we'll do it tonight and have another meeting and then approve.
I was hoping to not have another present vote, which is very much out of order. It's buffoonery, we shouldn't have to deal with it. You're allowed to vote in the affirmative, you're allowed to vote against something, but if you're not taking a vote and you wish to abstain, then you shouldn't be part of any of the debate. We were going to discuss something that would directly affect emergency management. Paul Konechny would raise his hand, read into the minutes that he's excusing himself from the discussion. He's the emergency management coordinator, so there wouldn't be an appearance of a conflict, so he wouldn't vote. So your duty on this board is to vote. You may vote yes, you may vote no. Let your conscience be your guide. You should ask for all of the information, advocate for your position, whatever it may be. You just can't not vote.
So do you want to vote this tonight?
I'm happy to
We've
go-
reviewed those items, there's no reason why we couldn't.
Those are the items presented this evening?
Yeah.
Okay, and it would be the water and the sewer on top of that?
Yes.
And it wouldn't include the library because they haven't come here yet.
Correct.
So it'd be fire up.
And then you present the entirety of your capital improvement plan for 21 to the joint meeting of the FAA and the Board of Selectmen. The
Why
Board of
did we
Selectmen-
take the loader off?
The loader's not off, is it?
Oh, there we go.
Is that the very
So we heard
top?
for the generator, there was if you would scroll up, there would be a water pickup truck.
My suggestion would be just to vote to approve water infrastructure project as presented for 5.22 and the
Right.
1.3 for sewer.
Right.
So where is the 5.22 adding up on
It's,
this?
it's not, I want to say all of the estimated costs were a best guess. So what these folks have done, they did their legwork.
These were pre-engineered costs. This is when we were literally sitting with the consultant and George saying, what do you think?
Right.
You want to put a dollar on there? What should I put on there? So this is where we're kind of fine tuning the actual cost.
Right. Same reason the previous I&I numbers were best guesses. The 125,000 that Marina put forward for the fall town meeting is going to end up covering more than she thought. So we're going to cover, it's a best guess. What's the world going to be like in a year and a half, 2 years when the construction project gets finished? It's a roll of the dice and it's a best estimate.
Can we get a printout of what we're making a motion on off of that sheet?
So you want to go through all of these right now?
I mean, I can't imagine we're going to revisit
Well, all right.
the generator.
I have a list of right here. I print it out for you, but we can't make any, I can't modify it at all, and I can't print from here.
But I think we can get a pretty good,
So for water, then, I'll make a motion that we approve the 5.225 million in construction costs for the water department.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
I,
Opposed? So voted.
And I'll make a motion that we approve the $1.3 million in construction costs for the sewer department project.
A second? Do I have a second?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I
It's okay.
second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
I'll make a motion that we approve the pickup truck with a plow for the water department for $45,000.
Is that the one they
I have
removed the
40,
plow on?
Remove that?
Yeah, they took
that,
the
that's
plow.
43, water pickup? 43, 349.
They remove it? Is it?
Did they take the plow off of that one, or was that the highway department that took the plow off?
That's the highway.
Highway bin.
I second then.
We have a motion is
43, 349.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the generator for $80,000 for the sewer department.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the generator. Any discuss? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
I make a motion that we approve the loader for the highway department for $190,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the loader. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve a new pickup truck for $45,000 for the highway department.
Mo- We have a motion and second for the pickup for the highway, 45,000.
Mr. Chairman, can I modify that to be 48,860? Just so we get the number got modified.
If you'd like to amend your motion.
Amend my motion that we approve the highway pickup truck for $48,868.
48,868.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
The next one, the next pickup truck is gonna be 37,998, and that's for the building and grounds highway.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the pickup truck for the grounds and, building and grounds for, you said $37,998?
Correct.
Second.
We have a motion second for the building and grounds pickup. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the amount of $500,000 for the highway department for the access road project.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the municipal complex, the HVAC improvements and upgrades for $250,000.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
Anybody else want to make a motion? No? Am I the other one?
You're doing
You're on a
a good
roll.
job.
My-
Chairman, I
my
make a
neck is-
motion, $45,000 to pay for security for all town buildings for the municipal complex.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for $20,000 for a new phone system for the municipal complex.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the new phone system. Any discussion?
Would the mover be okay if we said 25,000 or other such sum, just to be on the safe side?
With unanimous consent, I'd like to modify my motion.
I don't-
$25,000 for a new phone system or any such figure for the municipal complex.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, $20,000 for maintenance on dams, falling into the purview of the town administrator.
Second.
I have a motion and second on the dams. Any discussion?
Yeah,
I think we're moving that off.
I'd be happy not to have, I think we can remove that. I don't know the correct figure on that. I'm gonna apply for an action grant. I don't think 8,000 is gonna do it.
You don't think 20,000 is going to do it?
Threw out like a $900,000 figure when we were talking.
Well, for discussion,
Right.
It should go through no matter what, right? Is that,
I'd be happy to go through and recommend $50,000 or $100,000 that you would have a recommendation from this board to go through, and even if you had to borrow for engineering costs, so
Yeah.
that you could have a shovel-ready project for federal funding. That's why I'm thinking ahead of,
yeah.
it's in front of us. Goodness gracious, $20,000 doesn't get a crane to
Right,
show
this
up.
doesn't necessarily make it to any, doesn't even make it to the warrant if we don't want it to. You know,
Right,
so
but it's approval.
it's approval in advance, so that if something comes up
Approval in
over the
advance
course
so
of the
that
year.
it's not in question, and if it's not spent in '21 with unanimous consent, we'd move it to the next year because really elves aren't gonna fix the dams overnight.
Well, the dams are gonna be a capital project. I think you're gonna see those for the next 10 years on this.
All right.
plan.
But I'm just thinking, if you had approval from this committee for $25,000, $50,000, $100,000, you had the approval, and if, there's never been an issue, if you had approval for 100,000 and you knew you're gonna need,
Just put the threshold on at 25, that'd be fine. 20 or 25 would be fine,
So we're at 20.
yeah.
Even at 20, probably not gonna go.
That way, at least the project has
It's
gone
on there.
through.
the project is on there, and we will have thought in advance, so 20.
Sorry, goes back to 2050?
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
I,
Opposed? So voted.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve 20,000 for cybersecurity.
That'd be great.
It's under the MIS, or it's under your purview because it's security?
Well, it's an MIS, but they put the cybersecurity thing ended up under my budget line item, so. The bylaw requires me to be in charge of it, so.
You're in charge of MIS or security?
Cybersecurity.
Okay. Under the purview of the town administrator.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second for the 20,000 cybersecurity. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the police cruiser in the amount of up to $50,000.
Second.
We have a motion for the police cruiser of up to $50,000 and a second. Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
Make a motion that we approve a new ambulance for $260,000, up to $260,000.
We have a motion, $260,000 up to $260,000 for new ambulance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Is that everything?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
So can we roll down what's,
That's what's left for this year. Library.
Are they gonna submit something to capital improvement for that $100,000? Did they get a
Oh,
quote
yeah, we'll
yet?
call them tomorrow.
I'm gonna see if she can submit
Yeah. Oh, I'd like to see something first. Yeah.
so do we put it on there for planning purposes, but we're gonna meet there one more time?
I would think
So that
Yes.
we'd have it approval, and if no one bothers to show up, we'd take it off.
Right.
And through the chair to the town administrator, it's $117,500 worth of, it all looks almost like interior upgrades. It's almost refurnishing between computers, chairs, replacing a copier. We make it one big motion for 117.5 interior improvements, including,
Well, yeah, we'll give her the opportunity to say what her priority is, maybe, you know. Now, here's the thing, right? Where does this fall into the townwide budget priority? This would be, in the future, this would be another,
so okay.
I think we should give her the opportunity, maybe computers, and I did speak to her a little bit. I think that, maybe copiers and computers might be a priority, and maybe the carpeting can hold off. Maybe it's not, $100,000 for the carpeting can hold off another year. I don't know, I can't speak for her, but, I think we put things on this list, and then we come to.
So this is part of the original list, but it
This is
wasn't,
part of the original list.
but it wasn't pared down during a budget meeting?
No.
Okay, for the benefit of somebody who didn't get a chance to make it here, I will make the motion to put $100,000 to replace carpeting for the library.
We have a motion for $100,000 for the library carpet. Do we have a second? With no second, motion fails.
Okay.
What was it? All right,
Logic was to have the placeholder there,
okay.
just for the sake of, if we get to the town meeting and this came up as
A thing.
borrowing item, and
She'll come in. We'll have her come in.
Yeah, I'd feel more comfortable. I could see why we need $100,000 worth of carpet.
That library's not that old.
No.
That's
So,
that's the only thing. I don't feel comfortable voting. on
Okay, so
that.
you want to set up another meeting? What's good for everybody?
Tuesday nights are good for me. I personally would rather do it after our joint meeting. The FAA is gonna meet jointly, and there's three of us here.
calendar-wise,
Calendar-wise.
after, okay.
Yeah,
And so
a better idea what's.
Leave on April 6th, right,
Yeah.
You mean directly after that meeting, like the same day, or just another day after that meeting?
Well, I can meet after the joint FAA meeting if you wanna meet that same night. That could go long.
I'd much rather race to be here at 5:30 in advance of a 6:30 selectmen's meeting than to be here at 10:40 drumming my fingers, waiting for the
Yeah.
selectmen's meeting to end.
Okay.
Number one.
Oh,
Do we
yeah.
need to meet with, we don't need to meet with FAA or the Board of Selectmen for anything else we need.
So I
this
guess we make a motion to send a preliminary, no, it's our calendar right now. It's set. It's set, and per the bylaw, we have the ability to amend it up until June 30th. So we sort of set the CIP approval
You're in good shape.
right now. We'll send Mr. Landry I'll be there at 6:30 on 323. But
Is it 6 or 6:30, I'm sorry?
At 6:30, we'll have Camden Partners do their presentation.
Camden's doing the first half is all Camden.
Right, and then your budget.
And then the selectmen FAA join after.
Yeah.
But
that's a
So
long
what time do
night.
I need to be there?
we're running out of dates now. I've got to get the special town meeting going.
Oh, I know.
There's just not enough time in the day to get it all going, so. But it's gonna be a kickoff meeting. I'm literally handing over my proposed budget, kickoff meeting, here's where we're at, revenue, expenses, this is what I propose. We'll meet in a few weeks. It's literally the usual kickoff meeting that we have.
But we'd want to vote, well, the selectmen, it's a perfunctory vote. They've accepted our recommendations for 2021.
You know,
That's really the only thing that we need to have happen.
and you only need to have it happen before June, right?
Well, we gotta have our capital requests in and voted on before the 30 days before, right? The meeting? And we put that bylaw into place?
Right. So I'm
So when's the town meeting?
18th.
May 18th?
Yeah.
So by April 18th, we have to have our final,
Yeah.
so we should have plenty of time.
We can present the capital plan and we'll vote at the next one. April 6th is the next one. Boom. Can't say there was no time to review it.
I'm with you, I'm good.
Okay, so emails will go out.
Or, all right, time? Date to be announced.
Right, time and date.
Huh?
So if anybody have anything else?
I know. I think you can.
I guess we should ring the bell because there's going to be a town meeting on,
There will be a town meeting on the 30th of March, a special town meeting with one warrant article, which will give us, where the town will vote to ask the legislature or to support our legislative delegation and the governor who's going to submit a special act for us to be incentivized at the Stevens project. We don't qualify to be a gateway community. In a residential TIF, we can't offer a TIF in a residential development in the way we have it set up now. So we're going to ask the legislature to do it. Rep. Duran has already gone to the governor's office. They're willing to sponsor it for us. So we just need the town to say, yes, please grant this special act. And then the governor's office will sponsor it for us. One vote, or we should be out in 30 minutes.
Where are you holding?
Right here, 51 people, boom.
What time?
6:30.
On the 30th?
and the 30th is,
It's 7.
Oh, it's 7?
That's what it says on the
Oh, the
warrant.
general, okay, all right.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, that's fine, 7 o'clock.
7 PM?
Everybody will have a, eaten and be in a good mood
what day of the week is that?
You
for Monday.
post the warrant after I get final language of the article from town council.
Yeah. We're just waiting for the final language to give.
We have one.
Let's have a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
Amen.
Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.